Good afternoon. To start our study off, I'm going to read out of 2 Thessalonians. Paul is telling us a little bit about the activities of the devil. I'm going to start reading from verse 7. For the secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan, displayed in all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and to be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth but have delighted in wickedness. Here Paul is telling us that the works of the devil is already being found in planet Earth, and that we will become knowledgeable of it, but that he is going to deceive those who have rejected truth. Again, you will recall that this whole message is to the inhabitants of the earth, those who are still making their minds up regarding truth and the acceptance of that truth. Paul says further in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, and I want to read this to you. He says in verse 10, "If you forgive anyone, I also forgive him. And what I have forgiven, if there was anything to forgive, I have forgiven in the sight of Christ for your sake." Then he says this. Why does he do all of that? In order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. So Paul is making it very clear here that we are acquainted with the schemes that he has. He says further in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and which is quite a concerning thing to me. He says there in verse 4, "The God of this age, which is the devil, has blinded the minds of unbelievers, so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." So here he's saying that the work of the devil is to get us to reject the truth of God. And God's objective through the trumpets is to draw our attention to the activities and the works, the deceptive works of the devil. Now let's get to our study for today. And today we're going to be introduced to the fifth trumpet. And dear friends, this is going to take us more than 1 or 2 or 3 studies, because it's really packed with a lot of information. So I'm going to start by reading to you there out of Revelation chapter 9 from verse 1. "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet." So we have the angel giving us his message. And it says there, "And I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth." So here's my star. It's falling from the sky to the earth. Then it says there, "The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss." Here I have the key, and he's given a key to the shaft of the abyss. And today I feel that what we're going to look at is to try and understand just the beginnings of this message. So we've read Revelation chapter 9 verse 1 only. Now, let's first of all understand that as we've looked at it, the earth is planet Earth. There is no doubt about it. And he's not attacking the earth physically, but he's attacking the inhabitants of planet Earth. So who is the star that has fallen from the sky? In order to give that answer, I'm going to be turning to Revelation chapter 12, and I'm going to read from verse 7 through to verse 9 and then verse 12. John writes, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down. And so who is the star that is hurled down? It's the great dragon. But then it goes on to say that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan. So immediately we see that this star, which symbolizes an angel, is no other than the devil himself. It says, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. So not only was the devil hurled to the earth, but all his followers, his angels that are doing his pleasure, fell with him also. Then it says further in verse 12, therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short. So we see quite clearly here that when we study Revelation, that the star that has fallen from the sky is no other than the devil and his followers. I want you to notice that Jesus himself knew this. And we find there in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus says this, verse 18, he replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So we see that Christ acknowledges and gives us this information that this star that has fallen from the sky to planet Earth, and where he finds his domain now, is no other than, as Jesus said there, I saw Satan, I saw the devil, I saw the dragon and his angels hurled to planet Earth. But then I want you to notice that this star is given a key. Now, in order to understand this, keys are usually used to unlock in doorways or to unlock restraints. And I'm going to explain this to you as we go on. But we see that this star is given a key which he uses to unlock the abyss. Now, to understand the abyss, I want you to go and have a look with me what the symbolical meaning will be for that. And in Luke chapter 8, I'm going to be reading from verse 26. It's all about a demonic possessed man. They sailed to the region of Gennesaret, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. So I want you to notice here, we see that when the devil comes down, he attacks the inhabitants of the earth and he takes occupation of them. We see it's a demon-possessed man. It says then, when he saw Jesus, this demon-possessed man, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the evil spirit to come out of the man. So it's so interesting that Christ has dominance or has authority over the devil still. And he says to the demon-possessed man and the demons that are in him, "Come out of him." Now it says there, many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into a solitary place. Do you see what the devil really wants to do with us, dear friends? Then it says in verse 30, Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" So Jesus is speaking to these demon-possessed people. And it's interesting, he's speaking to them because he does know them. In actual fact, it's so interesting that he gave them their names. He was their creator. And this one responds by saying, "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And then it says there, and they, plural, begged him repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. So we find right here that Jesus has authority to do something with the demons, and that is to restrain them, not to allow them to get on with their demonic activity. So here we see that the abyss in symbolical language is a restraining that is placed over something. I want you to notice, for example, that sometimes the word abyss is also when we refer to the grave. Now, the interesting, when a person has been surrendered to the grave, he has been placed in a place of restraining. They can't go anywhere. It's a place that they are bound in. So the word abyss clearly indicates to us that it is a place of restraining, or a restraintment that Christ has actually put over the activities of the devil. Now, I also want you to notice that in Mark chapter 1, we read of a very interesting story that takes place in the synagogue. It says there in verse 22, the people were amazed of chapter 1, Mark chapter 1 verse 22. The people were amazed at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority. You see, Jesus had authority, not as the teachers of the law. Just then, a man in the synagogue who was possessed by an evil spirit, again by one of the devil's angels, and he cried out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." So it's interesting, we had this dialogue taking place between Jesus and this demon, this fallen angel. And he says, "We know who you are." And then listen to this, verse 25, Jesus says, "Be quiet," said Jesus sternly. "Come out of him." So immediately Christ placed a restraint on the activities of this demon. And so we see that the place of restraint is referred to, or to be restrained means to be placed in the abyss. Now tomorrow we're going to discuss this further, but let's just conclude this. We see that this message starts off by saying that we're going to see that there is an activity that God is going to allow the devil to start with now, to get into activity with now. So we see that the devil is going to get involved in the affairs of mankind. And we see that this devil has been given the key to the shaft of the abyss. That means he's been given the key to this place of restraint, and he's about to unlock it. From tomorrow on, we're going to find out what happens when he unlocks the abyss. Dear friends, choose Christ. Allow him to be the ruler of your life. Let him be your salvation today. God bless you.